conversation over and over again. At the end of the day, the industry in which we have the greatest comparative advantage in the world is in tourism. In terms of the size of our tourism plan, we are a minuscule part of what it is. We get 300,000, just over 300,000 arrivals, land-based arrivals, and 700,000 cruise ship arrivals. Okay? So the Caribbean as a whole is 1.5% of the total tourism market in the world, and Saint Lucia is less than 1% of the Caribbean's portion. So it means we're in a minuscule part. I mean, as I said, Jamaica gets over 700,000 arrivals just from the tri-state. Saint Lucia is getting 150,000 from the entire United States of America. Okay? 2, tourism becomes a platform to support diversification. Through tourism, you could now grow your agricultural sector, and even from an agro-processing perspective, introduce products that tourists would not have known. Do you think that a tourist not coming to Saint Lucia, going to a grocery store in England and seeing a bottle of Chairman's Reserve, is going to buy that over a bottle that is heavily marketed? But the fact that he would have come to Saint Lucia and would have had Chairman's Reserve here and has fond memories of it creates that demand. And then he is then introducing that brand to other people. Corona beer is the #1 beer in the United States, foreign beer in the United States, because what? There's 43 million Americans that visit Mexico a year. So there is absolutely historical correlation between products that we produce and the demand for them and the number of tourists that you have. The second part, I gave the example of Tortuga rum cakes. So here was a gentleman who produced a rum cake that he was sold to 1 hotel in Cayman. Then he sold to 2, 3 hotels in Cayman. Then he got into the mail order business in Cayman. And then now he got into the duty-free market. So here's what's happened. If tourism in Cayman were to shut down tomorrow, Tortuga rum cakes will continue. And that's when I say to you that tourism becomes a platform for diversification. So that's what the opportunity lies. So the more tourists we can get here, the more small businesses we can help grow, they eventually can become industries by themselves. We've seen in the rest of the Caribbean, offshore financial services, as an example, grew in Cayman and Barbados and in Bermuda because of tourism. Tourism did what? It brought in airlift, it created infrastructure, golf courses, restaurants, all the things that those people want when they come here. So I don't believe that tourism is at the size here in Saint Lucia that we have anything to worry about. We're only 3,500 hotel rooms. We believe we need to get closer to 10,000 rooms. And what we've seen is that let's continue the idea of developing those small businesses and helping to diversify Saint Lucia from that perspective. The other thing is that tourism doesn't affect any of those things. So if you want to diversify, go ahead and diversify. But if you have limited resources at this particular time, you're going to put the money into which is going to generate the greatest amount of returns. We've said the 2 things that we're going to focus very heavily on is tourism and also agriculture. Because agriculture may not move the GDP number, but provides incremental revenue to the households of the people, particularly in the rural areas. So a person doesn't have to give up their full-time job. Arts and crafts, the ladies we just saw at the event that we took place at the Teapot. Most of the women and the people that were producing the arts and crafts are doing it in part-time. So they have a job, and they're coming home and they're making all this stuff. That's what we call incremental revenue. And if the revenue, household income revenue is too low, that's a great way of making that happen.
So agriculture plan B, arts and craft plan C.
Sorry?
Agriculture plan B, arts and craft plan C.
And again, I'm going to get into trouble by making this statement. Okay? Agriculture by itself cannot sustain the development of our country. It's just not, it cannot generate enough jobs, it can't generate enough income, right? But it's an incredibly important part to our country in terms of security, but more importantly in terms of incremental revenue.